even in Costa Rica. It is a moral value to have a strong public school system so that everybody can get ahead. It is a moral value to take care of the earth, to have renewable energy programs. Stop depending on Middle Eastern oil. Speaking of Middle Eastern oil and moral values, the opportunity this president has is extraordinary in the next week. This president, almost 2 years ago to the date, almost 2 years ago to the date, promised that he would fire anybody in his administration who was found to have revealed the identity of someone who was defending the United States of America by working in a covert role for the CIA. Now we're going to find out, Mr. President, if you'll keep your word. Who do you value more, Mr. President? Do you value intelligence operatives defending the United States of America, or do you value political operatives from Texas? Yep. We're going to find out. Who do you value more, Mr. President? The security of the American people, or your political cronies? Will you keep your word, Mr. President? We're going to find out if the President of the United States will keep his word. A moral value is honesty in government. This party will not conceal reports that show additional mercury in the air leads to higher toxicity for pregnant women in order to put in rules that allow more mercury to go into the air. This party will never conceal the cost of a major program such as the Medicare drug program. This party will not pay journalists to write favorable stories about unpopular programs. This party will not tolerate a majority leader who has 3 ethics code violations, is headed for a 4th, is under investigation by the district attorney in Austin, Texas, whose cronies have already been convicted. We will not tolerate it. Honesty in government is a moral value, and the Democrats will stand for that in 2006 and in 2008 and beyond. We are tired. America is tired of dishonesty in government. America is tired of our sons and daughters being sent abroad and being told something that was other than the truth in order to send them. If you want to send our brave kids abroad to defend the United States of America, this party believes we have an obligation to the parents and the people of this country to explain why honestly. So we're going to reform the healthcare system, we're going to reform the fiscal system, we're going to bring jobs back to America. You know why we did so well in the 90s? Because Bill Clinton, the first president, balanced the budget. In 30 years at that time, people had confidence in the country that can run itself properly. People have lost confidence in America because they have no confidence in the chief executive of America, and this party will fix that.
Amen. Yeah.
You know why our kids aren't joining the armed services? Because they don't have confidence in the chief executive. We need a chief executive. We need a strong armed services. We need a strong defense. We're not going to have one with George Bush in the office. Because George Bush doesn't understand defense. He doesn't understand that North Korea and Iran, on the verge of developing or having already developed nuclear weapons, are a greater danger to us than a third-string tin pot dictator, no matter how awful he was. The president doesn't understand that a renewable energy policy is part of national defense, so we don't depend on Middle Eastern oil. The president doesn't understand that a balanced budget is part of national defense, so the Chinese and the Saudis aren't the ones that hold our debt. We need a president that understands national defense. And we're going to have one, and I'll tell you why. The American people care about freedom. That's why President Bush talks about freedom every third word. problem is he's busy trying to give it to the Iraqis while he's taking it away from us. How about the Republican Supreme Court, which ruled the other day that if the Sheraton Hotel wants to build a place on your house, they can take your house away? The Republican Supreme Court. How about the Republican president and Republican leader who decided they were going to tell Terry Schiavo's husband what to do? If that's their argument for the sanctity of marriage, then they better rethink a whole lot of things that they've been doing. But American people are fair people, and they're good people, and they're thoughtful people. We need to do a better job of talking to the American people. I want to share the results of a poll very quickly with you, just part of one, to show you what it is that we're going to do differently. We do not need to change our beliefs. We do not need to change our value system, because our value system is better than the Republican value system. And let me explain to you why. When I got to be the chair of the DNC, we made a lot of changes. And we got rid of just about all the consultants. And we have a new pollster. We have a new pollster. He's a 37-year-old African-American pollster. It's the first time any party's ever had their chief pollster as a member of a minority group. And he showed me the best poll I've seen in probably 10 years. What he showed was, how many of you read What's the Matter with Kansas? What he showed is that Tom Frank is partially wrong about what he wrote. People don't vote against their interests. Voters are smart. They're much smarter than the Republicans think they are. But there is a group of people who voted against their economic interests, and I want to tell you about them, because it's where the Democrats need to win. And they're in rural Wisconsin and rural every place, but they're not just in rural areas. 27% of the American public is at the low end of the income scale. And they have the highest anxiety levels that I have ever seen in a poll. All 8.5s to 9, low 9s on a scale of 10. This is a very high anxiety level about losing their jobs and having it sent to China, or having something happen to their family in terms of health care. Most of them have no insurance, but even the ones that do, it's a lousy policy. And they're incredibly worried about their economic livelihood. The vast majority of them voted for President Bush. Because at the other end of this barbell-like distribution was the highest anxiety level that I have ever seen about moral values. And we are not speaking about marriage equality or a woman's right to make up her own mind, better health care. They don't like those things, but they're lower down on the list. You know what they're worried about? They're worried about what's coming through the television that their kids see. They're worried about the fact that their junior high school and their high school kids get home at 3 o'clock and they can't get home till 6 because they have to work. They're worried about the sheriff who just found a methamphetamine lab 2 counties over, and they know that stuff is heading towards their schools. And we don't talk to those folks. Our response is, well, we have 3 programs that will be really great. We have after-school programs, we have early education programs, we have universal health care for kids. And that'll solve your problem. You know what they hear when we say that? They hear, oh, I see the Democrats are going to raise our kids for us. We don't want that. The problem that we have is that Democrats too often think that a message is a list of issues. A message is a list, is a statement of principles and values. We have not developed that in this party, and we need to do it. We need to start talking to people who are worried about their children from here, not from here. Yes. 75% of Americans are not making their decision here, they're making it here. You know what Bill Clinton would do? We laugh at this, I'll tell you, it was incredibly effective. Bill Clinton would say, I feel your pain. We don't have to have a program. That's not what they're asking for. What they're asking for is, do Democrats understand how hard it is to raise the kind of moral child that we all want to raise in a very confusing country with lots of different kinds of issues and lots of different kinds of people, stuff coming at the television that even us in Madison might be a little worried about for our children. Those are real issues. And until we're able to talk to people about those issues. Gay marriage and all that stuff, that was a proxy. That wasn't the issue. The issue is this administration is outstanding at exploiting people's fears. There are no people who are nothing that brings more fear into people's hearts than losing control of their families and their children. And we have to speak to them. So I want to conclude and say first thank you very much for coming and contributing. I never expected to see a crowd like this, and I really appreciate it. I certainly never expected to have to close one venue and move into another. Not to mention giving refunds to the people who were in the movie. Thank you again, Henry.